What happened to the girl who fell in love with Darth Vader? The one true love to Anakin Skywalker was always no other than Padme Amidala, and even when he became a terrifying Sith Lord, his heart always remained with her. But what if I told you, Padme wasn't the only one who fell in love with him? In Star Wars Vader Dark Visions Issue 3, we learn of a nurse who fell for him instantly, and although it was a one-sided love interest, the interactions between these two were hilarious. Let's get right into it. The comic begins with Vader arriving on the Death Star, with tons of stormtroopers lining up to greet him. But behind these troopers was a nurse who snuck in to get a glimpse of the one she loved most, Darth Vader. She was just in awe with her jaw drop, watching him walk down. Then out of nowhere, she was quickly pulled away by her boss, which was one of the doctors, and he yelled at her to get back to work in order to prep the medical bay for Vader. She then went back to get supplies for the medical bay and really started to feel an emotion of sadness. She was upset that she couldn't greet Vader or even hold the door for him, which was something she loved doing. She was so deep in thought when all of a sudden, Vader was back. He walked down the hallway right in front of her, but this time he was alone. The nurse started to tremble and got extremely nervous just knowing that he was there, and she accidentally bumped her medical cart along the wall, quite literally falling for him. Vader kept walking past her and completely ignored her. She began to think to herself that his energy connected to her there, and that's the real reason why she fell. She started to have visions of what it would be like to be with him, so in love and so happy in a beautiful scenery with mountains and pink sky. She dreamt of him holding her and what it must be like to see under his helmet, and these visions quickly went away when she then had to rush to her operation for Vader. As soon as she ran in with her medical cart, her boss started to yell at her because of how late she was. He called her a fool and told her to get out immediately. Vader started to get angry that the medical team here couldn't get it together. He then force pushed the doctor, smashing him along the wall, and told him to control his team. But on the other hand, let's just say the nurse took this a little bit differently. She began to think to herself that Vader did this to protect her. She thought it was so sweet that he didn't want anybody speaking to her so rudely, so that's obviously why he force pushed the doctor. Obviously, right? Her visions started to become a little different now. They included the same pink sky as before, but this time she thought of Vader protecting her by torturing the doctor, force choking him and having the doctor beg for mercy. The visions faded once more and she then returned to Vader finishing up his surgery. The doctor apologized to Vader for how long that surgery took and then turned around, calling the nurse an idiot and to go clean up. She returned to the medical bay, and while she was there, she found a small piece of metal that belonged to Vader. She quickly stashed it away and returned to her living quarters, where she then put it in some sort of unusual box. Well, this box was a collection of parts and items across different surgeries that Vader had. She kept these as memories to always think about him. I don't know about you, but she seems to be a little bit crazy if you ask me. We then fast forward to another instance when Vader's TIE fighter comes in for a hot landing, practically crashing right into the main hangar. Vader, who is injured, storms in and looks everywhere for the doctor, but ends up finding the nurse instead. He started to breathe heavily and struggled to say the words,
"Get me to the doctor."
Once again, she took this differently, thinking that he actually needs her, not the doctor. So she, crazy enough, went behind the doctor's back and took it upon herself to do the surgery on her own. This was her dream, to touch his armor and to touch his heart. She even tried getting a glimpse of maybe what he looked like beneath the mask, when all of a sudden, the doctor rushed in, raging that she would even perform this surgery on her own and kicked her out immediately. But the nurse was flattered by this interaction, that out of all people, Vader came to her. She began to shift back into her visions of her and Vader on the battlefield. She was fixing his injuries and taking good care of him. The story then goes back to Vader rushing off from the medical bay, telling the doctor that he's needed back on the battlefield, and he leaves right away. But then she noticed Vader left his cape behind. It's rare he's ever seen without his cape, and she thought he left it behind just for her. In her mind, this basically confirmed to her that he loves her just as much as she loves him. She then sniffed his cape and said to herself that they were truly meant to be together. Forever and one day so soon, in spirit and in flesh. "Have you lost your feeble mind?" the doctor said. The doctor caught her stealing his cape, asking her if she wanted a death wish. Calling her a lunatic, he swiftly grabbed her collection box and the cape she stole and threw it right down the garbage chute. So just real fast before we continue, I want to know from you, what do you think she did from here? Alright, you got your guess? Well, you're probably going to get this one right. Surprise, surprise, she sprinted off directly to go where the trash compactor was and started to look everywhere for her collection. She then started to go absolutely insane, with her visions now being of her by Vader's side, force crushing the doctor. And let's just say, this is kind of when the story begins to shift. The nurse then decided to make a bold decision to visit Vader's personal quarters, the biggest no-no anybody could do. She heard rumors that it wasn't locked. This of course being because nobody in their right mind would go in there. But in her head, she felt the reason that it was unlocked was because he knew she would come visit him. A little bit crazy, right? Well, she began to approach his meditation chamber, where she then all of a sudden saw the face of Darth Vader for the very first time, a face that not many people have seen before. She was so in love and thought to herself how long she's been waiting to see his face. She told him how perfect he was and that he doesn't have to be alone. "I'm yours," she said. "We can be together, now and forever. We can be..." Vader stabbed the nurse with his lightsaber right to her chest, with her body then flopping to the ground. He then received a message on comms to attend the main bridge, so Vader then left and told the officer to
come get this garbage out of my quarters.
And that's that. That's the story. Probably one of the most interesting comic stories we get from Vader, and that you should never see him without his mask or you'll end up like her. But hey, at least we know that Vader was always loyal to Padme even all these years later. I hope you enjoyed the video, thank you for watching, and may the Force be with you, always.